All right. It's a little daytime video. I was thinking about some things, and I think we're going to start. I want to challenge some myths and some they say things. Now, one big one is everything in moderation, right? Now, before we go any further, I want you to know I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, I'm just a normal guy who has been learning, researching, and doing my own studying on nutrition and how the body works and questioning those things that everybody, seems to just assume. And, everything in moderation is one of those things that's very subjective. And I don't think people take that in context. Um, First and foremost, I would argue pop is terrible for you. So a little bit of pop, is it good? Well, if you move the goalpost from drinking pop all the time, 4, 5, 6, 17 times a day, to one every week, you could argue that's moderation. But when we moderate something, that means for an alcoholic, moderation could mean the tipping point, right? It's a relapse. For a drug addict, moderation, what's that mean? You know, I believe when there's something wrong or something is constantly happening, will moderation take away from prolonging the inevitable of the relapse or prolonging the inevitable about eventually getting back to excess? Or is moderation a guide or a gauge to keep something in check? So I think that decision is up to you. And, when you have extremely high blood sugar and a crazy amount of insulin, whether you're insulin resistant or you suffer from metabolic syndrome, we'll get into that later. Um, Moderation can be, the end point. It's not good. If you have to do some work to get to a point and then use moderation to reward yourself, there's arguments to that respect too, if it's good or bad. So, we always relate diet, health, nutrition, exercise to suffering or sacrifice. And, I don't believe it has to be that way. I think we can progress if we set some goals and get there. Sometimes moderation might be okay, sometimes it's not. If you want to fix something wrong, it has to be part of your plan to fix it. And just flying by the seat of your pants and not taking in consideration how things work and the context, moderation means shit. So everything in moderation is a very loose way of looking at things. And I'm looking to help people make changes, and you have to take everything in context. Now, an example of that would be, if you're looking to go on like on some kind of fasting regimen, or maybe even a high fat diet, a low carb. Now there's things that you got to look at, and it's not moderation. There's certain things that your body will have to do, and physiology comes into play there. So there are ways to curb those things. If you're looking to there's a doctor that I listen to quite often, and he is the carb addiction doc, Dr. Rob Sivas. He's online. Anybody in the world can call him, and he will consult with you. But his mandate is pretty much sugar is a big problem, and a lot of people are addicted to sugar, and they don't even know it. So you might be one of those people that are in denial, but sugar, we can relate to sugar and starch, which will relate to every single carbohydrate that you consume breaks down to in your blood as sugar. Simple. There is fast acting carbs, there's slow acting carbs, there's glycemic load, there's insulin indexes. What it means, it all means the same thing. You eat sugar and starch, it breaks down to sugar in your body. It all comes down to glucose in some way, shape, or form. So don't kid yourself and say that there's things that are better and worse when your body does not know the difference. Your taste buds, your brain does, your digestion, it all works the same way. It will all convert to sugar. So when we say carbs, we mean sugar interchangeably. So if you're looking to drop sugar and you're not paying attention to your carbohydrates, it's doing the same thing. Now, people will argue, people will debate on the amount, the quality, digestion, gut health, whether sugar is bad. There's like camps out there that don't eat sugar, period, don't eat carbs, period. I think you got to find that out for yourself, but don't be fooled. If you have a blood sugar control problem, and that does not mean pre-diabetes, type 2 diabetes, or hopefully not type 1 diabetes, which is really a different animal. You have a glucose control problem. So just moderating that might not be the answer. That might do nothing. That might just keep prolonging the inevitable. So you're going to have to take a look at that. Now, somebody who wants to give up something in place of something, moderation could be valuable. If you're a soft drink junkie, switching to Diet Coke or an alternative sweetener might get you through eventually to get off it, but don't kid yourself. And I think we have a very, very it comes down to whole natural foods. And if you're eating processed garbage, there's no nutrition there. So whether you're replacing sugar with sugar alcohols or alternative sweeteners or aspartame or sucralose, it's still the same problem. Okay, so what you can use bridges. I believe that's a valuable tool. I mean, honey in the context of a carnivore might be different in the context of a type 2 diabetic who is a raging sugar addict. Honey changes everything. It is a whole food. It's got nutrients in the food matrix. Table sugar is sugar. 1 part glucose, sucrose. 1 part glucose, 1 part fructose. So there's a big difference. How it works in your body from a physiological standpoint is debatable. But there's context to everything. And I just want people to be careful about everything in moderation. If you are trying to get a result or trying to change your life, you have to be very careful using that term. Cutting something out for a reason and doing a little bit of it for a reason, it's up to you. An alcohol, like I was saying, an alcoholic that drinks a little bit of alcohol still keeps that alcoholism alive. You might have a weaning period, you might have a sober period, but another drink may be a mass destructive relapse or coping mechanism. So there is spectrum, there is context. But I want you to realize, if you're deciding to make a choice on your health, you have to be very careful about that saying, everything in moderation. Some things, you're going to have to be the judge, use logic. Do what I do. I break things down, pros and cons, look at some information, do some research, and base my decision based on what may happen, what probably will happen, and what could happen. There you go. And if you notice something's off, that's when you can start dissecting it. That's when you can start fine-tuning it. For somebody who is trying to go ketogenic, erythritol and sucralose, Splenda might be a valuable tool. For somebody who has no problem with blood sugar, who's in decently reasonable health, might have no problem just having, dessert once in a while. But if you're going for a goal, if you're going for a result and a certain endpoint, and that moderation is holding you back, you have to be very careful and look at that from that respect. I'm not going to keep you long. I just wanted to blast that out there because everybody seems to have this feeling about moderation. Everything in moderation. I disagree. That's my opinion. That's not any medical advice. That's not any from any doctors. That's just from a standpoint. What do you want? What are you prepared to do for that result? Then you have to look at the moderation side of things. Is it detrimental? Is it okay? Is it a coping mechanism? And these things will help you get to where you want to be if you look at it from an outside perspective. All right? And remember, we are all victims to mass marketing. You know, these treats, these low fat, like everything in our generation, it goes through phases. They know what we buy into. So, just for an example, you know, I respect people that want to make a change for the better. I respect people's ethics, and I respect people's, you know, their effort to try to be healthier. Now, whether you're a complete vegan, plant-based, whether you're a complete and utter carnivore, the way you got there will all have different reasons for. And I believe, you know, eliminating processed foods is number one. Get rid of the garbage that is man-made production, that is agenda, money, market driven. So people get on this keto kick. Now look at how many keto snacks there are. Every magazine's telling you the ultimate keto diet. People don't even know what it means anymore. You know, a keto snack, is it moderation? Does it get you through it? Or is it a valuable tool to get you where you're going? You have to be very careful. And that's all I'm saying. Quite often when we replace something in the name of somebody else's financial agenda, is that really better? That's up to you. You got to be the size. You're your own barometer in that respect. Now, you know, one perfect example, and I'm going to be a little bit biased here, and that's just my opinion. You can yell at me if you want to, but this KFC chicken nugget, or Beyond Meat chicken nuggets, okay? Let's think about this logically. What are you doing? Are you trying to not eat meat? Fine. Are you trying to get healthier through not eating meat? I would argue very, very, very strongly that that is complete and utter garbage food. Man-made, hyper-palatable, processed, you know, from a factory. It is not the real thing. Now, if you are looking for alternatives to get away from meat, sure. But don't fool yourself. Those things, we're eating them because it's the KFC 11 herbs and spices batter on something, and it is made with vegetable oil, which I will argue till I'm blue in the face about how bad they are, which I promised one of my buddies that we're going to do a long video on cholesterol. But think about that. It is the same food, or it's the same chemicals, the same cooking methods, the same agenda, but with a plant-based option. So if you're there for the nutrition, I would argue. If you're there to get away from meat, sure. If it's a treat, sure. In moderation, hey. But that's a perfect example of processing man-made garbage in the name of better for you. So I just want everybody to be careful. And you know what? If you're willing to dive in and make a change, all the power to you. Whichever way you decide, I'm just trying to give you some light and some normal average guy approach to some of the confusion out there. And remember, everything in moderation could be very dangerous in the wrong context. All right, everybody, stay strong. We'll talk to you later.